All right. Welcome to This Week in Baseball Player Profiles as we profile Mike Pelfrey, Wichita State pitching coach and former New York Met. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, Santo. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
How you doing today? Everything going well?
Everything's good. We're back in the office. The kids came in, got tested, and if everybody's good, we'll start practice on the 15th. Get rolling.
Okay. So basically, we're just going to go through a couple of questions here, talking about your past in baseball and then leading up to kids moving forward, what they can do to get better. So the first question I have for you is, when you were growing up playing baseball here in Wichita, what was that like for you? Because I know you didn't start till what, you were like 9?
Yeah, I started later, and it's kind of we had one pitcher on the team, and he was actually going on vacation. So the coach asked, who else wants to pitch? And I was like, well, I'll do it. Again, I was stuck in the outfield somewhere, and I was like, well, I'll do it. And so I went out and pitched and did pretty well. And he was like, hey, you want to pitch again? I'm like, yeah, I want to pitch again. So it just kind of picked up from there. So I guess I'm fortunate enough the kid went out of town, I guess, went on vacation.
All right. Well, I guess you got to thank that coach.
Yeah, who knows what would happen if I would have kept not hitting very well playing the outfield somewhere.
So as you got older, you went to Heights High School. What was the competition like compared to like now? Because I know there was, like when I talked to Stanford about it and the other guys, the competition in the area, there's less schools, I guess. So the competition was greater, I think. And there's more high schools now. How do you feel about all that?
It's weird. I know because when I was going through high school, obviously in playing, I know when I went to Heights, my first year we were pretty good and pretty loaded, but I had a lot of seniors. And I know once my senior year, I think we had 5 Division I guys that went on to play at Division I. So it was the talent was there, and I remember going to Wichita State and coming back and watching Heights and Carroll play. Mm-hmm. My freshman year of college, and I was looking around like the speed of the game just from being away for 6 months and coming back to high school. I was like, man, this game is really slow, just from being away or whatever. So I remember, obviously, I think it's a little bit different. Obviously, there's more schools now and more teams and stuff like that, so it's more obviously it's a little bit different now, more spread out. Competition's more dispersed. Right.
That led you to go on to WSU. What was your experience like at WSU with Gene and Brent?
Well, the first thing is coming out of high school, I wanted to sign. I wanted to go on the draft, and obviously, I fell in the draft to the 15th round. I remember coming here to talk to Brent after the draft, and I was kind of in a bad mood, kind of not in a good place. And he ended up saying, "Hey, this is going to be a blessing in disguise for you." And, I'm thinking in my head, blessing my, whatever. And, I look back, I was like, he was 100% right, and, now obviously going through it and looking back now, obviously I got stronger. I really grew up mentally, and if I would have, looking back on the only thing, if I would have signed out of high school, I don't think I would have made it because I was a little immature physically, immature, mentally. I don't think I would have been able to handle it, But obviously, coming to Wichita State and getting 3 years here was ended up being that blessing in disguise that Brent said in the first meeting after the draft. And like I said, best for me, Wichita State at the time was the best place in the country. It was a national powerhouse year in, year out, and it was a dream to come here, and I got to do it.
Well, just so people know. You're second all-time in the program with 33-7 record with 2.18 ERA. Second in the program, 366 strikeouts. You're a 2005 All-American. That year you were 12-3 with a 1.93 ERA, 143 Ks. I mean, these numbers are just off the chart impressive. When you start looking back at that, how does that make you feel when you see this?
Well, honestly, I took a lot of pride, and obviously I'm extremely, competitive. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about guys now that, 2 years ago, the most guys threw was 180 innings, like you said, I threw 139 my junior year. So, You know, and then these guys think 80's a lot, you know, and I was telling stories the other day, we were talking about with the coaching staff that, you know, there was a game at Missouri State. You know, I think we had a rough Tuesday, Wednesday game. I was starting at Friday at Missouri State, and Gene came to me and was like, "You're going all 9 on Friday," and I was like, "How about we just go 8-7 shutout and we call it good?" He's like, "No, you're going 9." And I was kind of laughed, you know, didn't think of it. So Friday comes, I don't have my best stuff, and then after the game, I go all 9 innings. We win 5-3, and after the game, reporter's like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "I feel good." He's like, "You know, you just threw 145 pitches."
Wow.
And I was like, "I did what?" But that was kind of, you know, we all caught up in pitch counts and this and that. But, you know, for me, I was going to go out there and throw and compete until they took the ball from me. And they never came out, so I didn't think anything of it, you know. But that was just kind of, you know, you throw Friday, you throw Tuesday, Wednesday, you start if they need you, and you come back, throw Sunday, and, you know, I guess that's how you get 139 innings in,
all right,
you know, in that short amount of time, you know.
All right. Well, when you just mentioned something, when pitchers don't have their good stuff, how did you overcome that mentally at any level, whether it be the pros or college? How do you overcome that?
Well, you know, I think that's one of the biggest things. You know, Wedge came here, and we've kind of changed here at Wichita State. You know, it's one thing that we preach, that, you know, whether you show up with your best stuff or you show up with your worst stuff that day, or you have a crick in your neck, your back's a little sore, you know, whatever you got, you've got a cold, whatever, like, you still have to compete, and you still have to find a way to navigate your team through the game and be able to keep your team in the game. You know, that's kind of the expectation we helped. It's, you know, kind of helped, you know, change the pitching side of it last year. But, you know, for me, it was about competing no matter what, you know, and you have to come to, you know, the idea that the other team doesn't know that you don't feel good.
Right.
You know, and unless you show them that, you know. So for me, it was always about there. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to compete no matter what. And whatever I have that day, whether it's, like I said, whether it's my best stuff, whether it's my worst stuff, I'm still going to compete and I'm still going to get after it. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think too that, hey, you might beat me, but you're going to beat me. You're not going to beat me trying to be somebody else or trying to trick you or do this. You're going to beat me. And you know what?
You're going to have to earn it.
Get the best of me. You know, we'll do it again the next time, you know, but you're going to compete no matter what.
Well, Brent was 100% right, I think, in you signing there at WSU, because you ended up becoming the 9th pick in the first round by the New York Mets. How was that day like for you and your family?
You know, pretty special. It was a little bit different then, you know, because like now there's a slot system. So, you know, you kind of just take the best guy. But, you know, early on in the draft, there was talk of, you know, the Royals called it 2 and said, hey, we have this amount of money for you. Will you sign? Like, no, we won't sign for that. So the Mariners called it 3, said something similar. Blue Jays at 6. So it ended up working down that I had about a week before the draft, I met here with the area scout, who was Larry Chase at the time, and Omar Minaya, who was the GM of the Mets at the time. And they pretty much said, hey, we're going to take you and we're going to give you, you know, a little over 5 in a big league deal like you want. So I kind of knew heading into it, but there's still that anticipation, kind of unexpected, something else could pop up at the time. So I kind of had an idea going into it, but obviously when your name's called, it's a dream come true. It was a pretty special moment. I remember my mom was crying, and, you know, probably got me a little teary-eyed too, but pretty special day, because that's obviously the opportunities open the door, the thing that you you work your whole life for and what you want to do. Yeah,
that's awesome, Mike. That really is. You played 12 years in the major leagues with the Mets. I know the Twins and the White Sox and the Tigers.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you came back to Wichita after your career was done, you had to transition. You transitioned into coaching. You started off at Newman. What was that like for you to transition into being a coach and starting off at a D2 level?
Well, I think for me, the last 5 years of my playing career, I had the idea that when I'm done, I want to coach. This is what I want to do. So a week after the 2017 season, I enrolled here at Wichita State so I could finish up my degree. Started doing that, and then about 3 weeks later, my buddy Brandon Hall, who I played with at Wichita State, and he actually coached at Newman at one time, was joking around with Zane and said, "Hey, when Mike gets to his internship, he wants to come be your pitching coach." And Zane made the comment, "It's like, well, why doesn't he come right now?" And I think at first, I don't know if he thought that I was gonna jump on the idea. But that Friday I went and watched practice and sit there. We just kind of take everything in. And I called him on Monday and I was like, "Hey, where are we meeting at? Because I'm in." So that kind of just started it. And I thought for me this would be a great, because no matter what anybody says, that you play, that's one side of it, then you coach, and it's a totally different world. And I thought about when I was a player, I was a mentor, but first and foremost, I had to take care of myself, make sure that I was prepared, do everything else. And then when I had the free time, I was able to do that. Well, when you're coaching, it's all about them, and trying to figure out, I found out real quick, hey, you have 20 pitchers, you have 20 different personalities that you have to deal with, So, for me, the whole thing was I was going to go gain experience. At Newman, I was very thankful for the opportunity to go do that. And do everything I could so that if this job ever opened at Wichita State, that I would be ready to do that.
Well, now you got your dream job as far as pitching coaches go, but you're following some tough footsteps, following in Brent Kimmons, which I would assume would be one of your mentors. He's the winningest coach in history of D1. How do you fulfill following those footsteps?
Well, early on, so he always had this brain that has 400 things. It's like 30 pages long. That every single day of practice, he called it flow, and he went over these mental meetings. So when I went back to Newman, originally I met with him early on and said, "I need a copy of your brain." So he printed it off. But the thing is, everybody that knows Brent, you can't read his handwriting. So I had to go over all of them with him. All right, what does 1 say? What does 2 say? And kind of make notes, and he writes like this, he's left-handed. I mean, it's painful. He says, when I was in player here, he sent you a note card home over Christmas break and said, "Hey, work on these things." And you couldn't read the thing when you left the office. So he went over that and he kind of helped out. Like you said, I love Brent. He's been huge for me. I'm extremely thankful because he helped me not only develop here to get me ultimately, help me ultimately get to the big leagues. Right. But it has helped me transition into the coaching side. And, I'm lucky that he's still on campus because I peck his brain still all the time on things. But he tells everybody, he's like, "I'm him," because I had the same mind as him and talking about preaching the same type of mental stuff and going through that stuff. He's like, "You're me, but just with 12 years of big league experience." So I'm not quite him because I don't think anybody's quite like him. But definitely as the coaching side of it, you take certain things from different people that you learn throughout your life, throughout your career that you experience. You kind of mold it into your coaching philosophy, But more than anything, I've taken things from him more than anybody else. Okay. Well, so WSU this year, what are your expectations of the team? That's a great question. For me, last year we got off to such a great start, and it got shut down, and who knows what would have happened, and it's not right. For Wedge and all these other guys who haven't seen necessarily the American Conference, he doesn't really fully know what to expect either. But from the compete factor, from these guys playing the game the right way, from them hustling, from the pitching staff who in 2019 had a 5.5 ERA, walked a little over 5 per game, and that 1 year time with Wedge, we had a 2.90 ERA and we walked a little over 3 per game. So I do know one thing: we're going to throw the ball over the plate. We are going to play defense and we're going to hit. So I think ultimately it's going to be an exciting year. Like I said, I think the discipline of these guys and the way they go about it is special, and it's a lot different from previous teams. So I expect us to be up there, and obviously who knows what happens in the end, but I think we're going to be fun to watch and pretty damn good. Yep, so do I. I think you're going to bring back what we need in Wichita: a lot of fan base, a lot of people are going to come to games, and that's going to start making baseball better in this area, especially with the minor leagues coming to town too. And I think it starts with you guys. And what you guys are doing right now, it's all positive. So I just want you to know that. What do you look for in a player when you're out looking at someone? What type of player are you looking for? Well, if I go and watch a pitcher, obviously, the first thing you see is obviously size, and That doesn't mean that if you're short, we don't like you. You know, we got a guy named by the Aaron Hasse on the team right now who's 5'8", and might have the best arm on the team. You know, as I was going to pitch a lot of meaningful innings. So, but size, we look at arm action if it's clean, if there's any red flags in the arm action. We look at pitchability, you know, because that's a thing that we run into a lot now. A lot of kids just care about velocity. You know,
right.
they don't necessarily care about where it goes. Well, we want pitchability, you know, and we want guys that can locate multiple pitches and locate a fastball. So we look at pitchability, we look at that, we look at like I said, arm action, we look at arm speed, but then also, you know, we're big into intangibles, and we look at the way they carry themselves. You know, if the scoreboard is turned off, I shouldn't be able to tell the score if I'm watching you pitch. You know, you should be able to keep that even demeanor. You know, no matter what. We watch guys in the dugout. We watch them. You know, are they off by themselves? Are they up on the dugout rooting their teammates on? You know, we like to get there. You know, we like to get there early. Pay attention to how they're playing catch before the game. You know, that's you know, one of the biggest differences the Wedge got here is we play catch every day. We play catch, and it's not just to get loose. It's important. And, you know, I preach the pitchers about every day. I want you, when you're done playing catch, I want you to be physically and mentally exhausted from concentration and execution on every single throw that you make. So
right.
Catch is a huge part of us. And obviously, you know, we get that into defense and everything else. It's an extension of playing catch, everything that we do. So, you know, if you ever come to one of our practices, the ball has to be clean. You know, whether you're throwing the ball down to second in between innings, whether you're throwing the ball across in between innings, you got to keep the ball off the ground. And that's right. One of the biggest differences that I see a lot of times in summer ball, where people don't necessarily take it as serious as it needs to be.
Right.
So we look at all that stuff, and obviously, you know, I deal with obviously more pitching than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What advice could you give to younger players now that, as you look back on yourself growing up, what advice could you give to these guys to start developing to get ready for the next level?
Well, you know, for me, you know, I'm a firm believer in you get out of it what you put into it. And, you know, I can, you know, go back to, you know, when I was younger, like you said, I started pitching at 9, and, you know, so I started a little later, but, you know, I 4 hours a day, you know, I threw a tennis ball against the garage, you know, and, you know, just going through it, throwing. And I've seen stories about, you know, Tom House saying that, you know, every guy that throws hard, I've heard some kind of story about some kind of tennis ball being thrown at some. Well, I read that story. I'm like, holy shoot, I did that for 4 hours every day in the summer. Mm-hmm. And I was always the first guy there, the last guy to leave. And I enjoyed it, you know, so, just continue, I think, to understand the game, learn how to play the game. And if you put the time in, you will put yourself in a position to play this game a long time, you know. Right. But you have to be able to enjoy it. You know, obviously, if you don't have the right attitude going into it at the end of the day, if you're just kind of whatever, you're not going to get the most out of it, you know. Right. Parent tells you go read a book, and you go read the book, and you're kind of like this. Well, you're not going to read very many pages. But if you go, your parents tell you, hey, you go play video games for an hour. Well, hell, you're running that video game thing, and you're like this, and you're like this. Well, you got something out of that, right? Yeah. So, but it's like that with baseball. It's like that with life, you know. And if you go and you take a test, if you didn't study for it, you're kind of unsure. But if you study for it, you feel pretty good. So if you're prepared in life, you're prepared for certain things. You'll be better off. You'll be better off in the end.
Okay. So now this one more correlates just to the pitchers. What advice could you give to pitchers, whether it's pregame stuff, after game, resting their arms, things like that?
Well, you know, the arm thing of it, you know, we don't, you know, we're keeping guys healthy here is really, really important to us, you know, so we don't overuse guys. You know, we try to, like I said, we try to keep them healthy and understand that, you know, we want to help these guys, you know, we help these guys become big leaguers. You know, a lot of guys want to get in, and like I told you earlier about the velocity side, everybody's this velocity is going to help me do this and that. Well, yeah, but velocity side of it might get you drafted a little bit higher. But then when you're released in 2 years, does it really matter? You know, the idea is, I want you to get drafted, but I want you to play in the big leagues. I want you to do this a long time. And in order to do that, that command is the most important thing. And pitchability, like I talked about earlier, is the most important thing. And we run around all the world, and it's just velocity this, velocity that. When guys come in, and you can't locate a pitch if you can't throw the ball over the plate consistent. You can't do that. You can't pitch for us. So that's kind of the biggest thing that, like I said, I run into on the recruiting side. And for me, understand as a pitcher, understand who you are, understand what makes you different, understand what makes you special, and be yourself. If you don't need to, if you're left-handed and you don't necessarily throw hard, well, be able to pitch in, be able to throw a changeup away, be able to throw a cutter in, but understand who you are, and if you understand that, and I think if you're true to yourself and you put the time in, like I said, it'll work out in the end.
Greg Maddox proved that point right there. A
lot of people don't understand that. That guy wasn't going to overpower you, but could put the ball wherever he wanted, multiple pitches, knew how to pitch. And, he's in the Cooperstown, which I heard is pretty good.
Yes, I hear that's pretty good too. What advice, and this is for parents, could you give to parents, especially the ones that have kids getting ready, going into their junior year, senior year, because those are the years they start panicking about their kids getting recruited because they hear about this 15-year-old in another state or a 16-year-old already getting recruited. What advice could you give to the parents on that?
Well, I think especially now, I would say be patient, and here's the thing, you talked about freshmen and this and that. So there's a stat that's like 72% of kids that sign their sophomore year before don't make it to that campus. So parents need to keep that in mind. But, right now with COVID, it's crazy. Like we currently can't even, we didn't go down, got shut down like last April, and currently we can't recruit off campus till April 15th, and we can't have people on campus. Obviously we get phone calls, we make phone calls, we call their coaches, this and that, but it's a pretty crazy time, in the world, and obviously these kids suffer because obviously this is a huge decision. Like some kids got to make it with. Without going on visits or meeting coaches face to face and this. So it's pretty crazy. But for me, I think just push your kid, to be the best he can be. And like I told you about earlier, can push your kid to put the work in so that he can be in a better position for himself. And ultimately, in the end, I think if he is talented enough to play at whatever level he ends up playing at, people will find him and make sure there in the end, make sure he gets there. And, maybe if he's not seen, maybe he has to go junior college for a couple of years or this or that. But, if he goes there and he puts up numbers and he develops and he performs that, he'll go to the right place where his talent says he should be.
Right. On a side note, like I've noticed, I know D1s and D2s, grades have meant a lot for these kids in school. I've noticed here lately, a lot of JUCOs now are in that same boat. They're looking for kids with good grades. That's important too, as well. Would you agree?
The academic side's obviously huge for us. And so, when Wedge took over, our first semester we had a 3.29 team GPA, which was at the time was the highest in the history of the program. Last spring we had a 3.49, and this fall we had a 3.49. So the academic side of it's huge. And for us, on the mental side of it, we throw so much of these kids and we expect so much of them. If mentally they don't apply themselves, it's not going to end up being a good fit.
Right.
Because they're not going to necessarily be able to keep up with as fast as we go, and, the discipline side, like I talked about earlier. So, we have mandatory breakfast, so these kids can't stay up and play video games all night. They have to get up, they have to get out of bed, they have to get on a routine. That's obviously important. We talk about that. Very few people in this world are good enough to just show up at the baseball field and just flip that switch on.
Right.
It's got to be from the time you get up at night to the time you put your head on it at the end of the night to go to bed. Everything in life is important. And our guys, they go to class. And if they don't go to class, we find out before they're done with class. And, the rule is here, if you don't go to class, you don't practice. So guys kind of figured out really quick that, hey, maybe I should go to class. And you see them going to class, you see the if you're in class, you're going to pay attention, you're going to put time in, and obviously the GPAs obviously reflect that. But school part's a huge important. Obviously, it helps with financial side of it because you can get financially scholarships, stuff like that. And obviously, it helps the parents out, helps the kids out. So huge aspect, like I said, from off the field and on the field.
Well, the best thing I thought you said in that whole thing there was about routine. Routine is important. And once they get into that, it becomes a habit. That's how, outside of baseball, what hobbies does Mike Pelfrey have?
Well, I like to play golf. I haven't, I got 3 kids, so I'm not as good as I used to be. The kids take up a little more time, so I don't play as much. I got a boss too that doesn't let me leave work and play. So I enjoy golf. I enjoy basketball. I enjoy little things, competing. And then the other thing, obviously, like I said, I got 3 kids, which I obviously spend a lot of time with. They're 11, 9, and 6, so they're pretty active. So over the Christmas break, I had a lot of Nerf gun wars and we built stuff like that. So they're pretty active. Well,
that's awesome. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I do appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're a busy person. It really meant a lot. I think there's some really good advice that you just gave to players. To hopefully they listen and take your advice. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Oh, you're good. And, I was thinking about when you brought the routine side of it, which is also it's huge. Like I said, and everything throughout your day being important. Because there's very few people, like I said, who can just show up and turn it on. It's got to be your whole life. And it's got to be important. But and also, on the pitching side of it. So, you get into a routine on the pitching side of it, and everybody has some kind of nerves or anxiousness for a game. Especially if I'm going to pitch. But you can get so entrenched in a routine, in a warm-up routine that you do from the moment you start stretching ahead of time, that those nerves kind of take care of themselves and begin to kind of relax and go away, so that you can be yourself.
Right.
So you can use that that excitement, that adrenaline, push it in the right direction. Versus you being overly nervous and you're all over the place with the routine, and then it takes you the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So just getting on that routine, like you just said, and having it in order from playing catch, from the time you stretch to the time you play catch to the time you do a flat ground bullpen into the game, that can obviously eliminate a lot of anxieties and anxiousness and stuff like that. So that's obviously hugely important. And just like I said, you get out of it what you put into it. So you put the time in, you put the effort in. Hey, you'll get out of it. It'll work out in the end, the way you want it to. So,
yes, sir. Well, again,
yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that concludes this week in Baseball Player Profiles. Mike Pelfrey. If you like today's show, please hit that like and subscribe button down there in the bottom. Again, Mike, I appreciate your time.
Tonto, I appreciate it, man. Take care.
Yes, sir.